So how would you explain DID to someone who has never heard of it or thinks it to be false? Okay, well, imagine that you are very, very young, maybe 3 years old. There's a person in your life that you look up to and you love, and they're meant to love you. It's somebody you expect to love you and take care of you. This person is supposed to love you and take care of you, but they don't. They hurt you repeatedly in a way that your young mind is too innocent to even comprehend. They tell you that it's your fault, that if you tell anyone, either the person won't believe you or they will hurt the person you tell or your family or somebody, or that those people will blame you for what happens. Now, if you're a very imaginative child and you can't escape from this thing that keeps happening to you, you might make an escape in your mind, a place to go to, so you don't have to be there. Or in some cases, you might just make it to where you go off and you're nowhere at all. While that happens, part of you is still conscious, because you can't just go to sleep. You can't just completely block it out. So your mind sort of pretends that it's happening to somebody else. And the more times that this happens, the more real it becomes. And because you're at such a young age, it's too difficult for you to define that, this is a coping mechanism, that I'm pretending this is happening to somebody else to cope. You can't comprehend that. It's just your reality at this point. And so then when that person is traumatized, maybe they split off, they do the same thing, until you're left with a bunch of different states of consciousness that develop into personalities. They're not a bunch of people in one body, they are a bunch of parts of one person who develop their own interests and likes and dislikes in order to stay as disconnected from each other as they can. Because if they're disconnected from each other, then they're disconnected from what happened to each other. That is how DID happens. If you can wrap your head around that, and you can believe that, then you can believe in DID. If you can't believe that, then I guess I can't really convince you. What is it like switching into the body for the first time ever? Is it a thing of shock or confusion or content? Switching into the body for the first time, I'm trying to remember. But for me, it was like I had never been really on the inside the first time I came out. So it was like kind of frustrating for me, maybe because I had things in my head, and when I went to speak, it was like something was blocking my words, and still happens to this day, as you can see. But when it first happened, it was very, very frustrating, and I kind of thought, it'll go away, it'll stop eventually, and it didn't. The first time coming into the body is really traumatic for most people, at least for me. I assume for most people, because like when you first come out, it's usually when you're first created, which is usually from a really like traumatic event. So like when something traumatic happens and that's when you're created and that's when you come out, then it's not like, it is shock, but it's not like, and it is confusion, but definitely not content. And it's more than that. It's like you're terrified and you don't know what's happening, and not only do you not know who you are, but you don't know what's going on around you, and you're terrified, and you think, is this what life is? Is this like, what have I been born into? You know, like, what is this? What is this world? What is this happening to me? Why am I here? How can I leave? How can I get out of this? How can I get away? And that's what it was like for me the first time I was out, and that's what I assume that it would be like for everyone the first time they come out. Yeah. The first time that I was in the body, it was kind of satisfying, I guess, because I had been locked up for like a really long time, and I finally got to be free. So I just went around and tried to experience everything I could. I went to pee. I was like, whoa, this is cool. I went outside. I just did everything, and things that you would think are simple, and for me it was content. Yeah, I would say so. It was really cool. Yeah. In your opinion, if the apocalypse happened tomorrow, would you be happy with the way you lived your life? Yes, I would. If you'd asked me this before I started the YouTube channel, I probably wouldn't be, because I've been wanting to do this, and if I hadn't done it, I would not be fulfilled. But now that I'm doing this, I'm quite happy, and I feel like I'm finally doing something. So yeah, I think I'd be happy with the way I've lived my life. I don't really have any regrets. If your life was a book, what would the title be? You can't make this shit up. If you were stuck on an island and there could only be one song, movie or video to entertain you for 365 days, what would it be? This will differ from each author, but I don't really have time to have each author answer this. So for me personally, that's really hard. It's a really difficult question. I reckon it would have to be a movie, because the other two are too short to entertain me for that long. The new It movie, I've already seen that twice, and I've liked it both times, so I guess that. What does your system hope to achieve within yourselves as well as external endeavours? Well, I can't speak for the whole system, but I personally just want to spread awareness, and what I want to accomplish for the rest of the system is to help everybody, especially Katie, be less afraid of this disorder, be less afraid of, not necessarily the disorder, but what people think of her, be less afraid of being open about it. And I think that this channel is helping with that, because right now she's very, she's not that open about it to most people. She's very, very anxious that people will find out and like think things of it. So I want that to change, and I'm hoping that I'm helping with that. And as for external endeavours, that sounds very poetic, but we are starting university soon in January, so I'm hoping that we succeed there and things aren't too difficult on us, and that we get our degree in interpreting and are able to help people in our lives, and also that Katie gets her book published. I don't really care that much about it, honestly, but I know that Katie does, so that's the main reason that I want that to happen. Can you guys see each other in the headspace? Yes, we can. You guys, your original looking selves in the headspace. I think what you meant by that was like, do we look different from each other? Like, do we each look like our own original person? Yes, we each have our own looks. Nobody looks exactly the same. except Catherine and Katie look very similar, but even they don't look exactly the same. Have you guys ever had a crush on one of the alters or someone you know outside the headspace? Yes, to someone outside the headspace. Yes, I've had a crush on someone outside the headspace before. And I've never had a crush on one of the alters. But there was an alter called Kelly a while back. She integrated while back, but Jake and Kelly dated for a time. So it is possible. If someone integrates, do they kind of disappear forever, or do alters always stick around in some way, shape or form? One, first of all, like, they don't necessarily disappear forever. Even if they integrate, they're not necessarily integrated forever because they can come back. But even if they never come back, it's not like they're gone forever. It's not like they're a separate entity and they leave the body. Like, if we're all a big puzzle, that piece is placed in, if that makes sense. I didn't word that very well, but like, it's sort of like that, like piecing together a puzzle. When someone integrates, it's not getting rid of that person, it's putting them together with the whole. So they're not a separate puzzle piece, they're part of the big picture now. Does everyone constantly chat with one another in your inner world? If so, does that make it hard to focus? Yes and no. Yes, we chat most of the time in the inner world. There are periods of silence that I don't really know how to explain. I guess it's like most of the time we're chatting and then sometimes just everybody stops, and I don't know if that's when somebody who's out is focusing really hard and so everyone has to go silent, because usually when that happens and I'm inside, I don't know why everyone stops talking and I don't really think about it. I've never really thought about it until now. It just kind of happens. We're all talking and then we stop. I reckon it's probably because somebody's studying or something. But I'm normally used to it, so it doesn't bother me too much. It's not too distracting. But sometimes, if they're particularly loud for whatever reason, then yes, it can get distracting and hard to focus. For me, I'm pretty used to it, but for Katie, I know it gets hard to focus sometimes. Does your inner world look and feel similar to the way a dream would to someone who does not have DID? Yes and no. Again, because for me, the inner world is a lot more physical than it would be for some of the others. Like, it's not the same for each alter, I don't think. The same, like, amount of physicality. For me, it's more physical because I'm there a lot of the time and I was an insider at one point, so it was like my whole world. It's not like some floaty dimension, which maybe not everyone's dreams are a floaty dimension, but that's what my dreams are sort of like. It's very hard to say, I guess. Sorry. What is an example of a bad shift? Okay, good question. Because I said that, I think that's because I said Libby had integrated and that Damsel and Dare could come inside, so that was a good shift. I didn't mean that, like, there are bad shifts exactly. Some shifts are harder to process than others. Like if we get a new alter, it's not seen as like as much of a good thing to like celebrate, because normally that means something traumatic or very stressful or hurtful has happened. So even though we welcome every alter with open arms, if there is a shift and an alter splits off, it's normally a sign that it's a very stressful time for us. So it's not necessarily a bad shift, it's just not one that we would celebrate, I guess, if that answers the question. I hope it does.